Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're unpacking a seriously fascinating mythological clash. We're looking at a profound, almost unavoidable conflict between the drive for creation and the absolute need to preserve nature. It's a dynamic that literally shapes the foundations of the world as we know it.
So what actually happens when the burning desire to create directly clashes with the grand design of the universe itself? It's a massive question, right? Well, to answer it, we're going to explore a story that's absolutely packed with secret rebellions, massive cosmic compromises, and this eternal, simmering tension between industry and the natural world. Let's get right into it.
Right at the heart of this conflict, we've got two central figures who couldn't be more different. On one side, there's Aulë the smith, the absolute master of craft, raw materials, stone, metal, and the deep mountains. And on the flip side is his wife, Yavanna, the ultimate nurturer. She oversees the preservation of nature, the trees, the light, the growing things, and those vast ancient forests. You can probably see right away how these two completely opposing domains might eventually bump heads.
Let's look at the catalyst of our story in Section 1, The Maker's Secret. Driven by this profound, honestly overwhelming desire to just have children, learners he could teach and share his magnificent crafts with, Aulë simply could not wait for the supreme creator, Ilúvatar, to fulfill his grand design. His impatience got the better of him. So, acting completely on his own, Aulë secretly wrought the 7 fathers of the Dwarves in a hidden hall, way deep beneath the mountains of Middle-earth.
And because Aulë was crafting the Dwarves during a time when the dark power of Melkor was still hanging really heavy over the earth, he deliberately built them to be incredibly tough, stone-hard and stubborn. They are fiercely loyal in friendship, completely unbending in enmity, and they were quite literally built to endure the harshest of conditions. They had to be tough to survive.
But as you might expect, you can't exactly hide a massive undertaking like that from the universe itself. Moving on to Section 2, Mercy from the Creator.
So Ilúvatar knows exactly what's been happening in the dark and confronts Aulë right as he's teaching his new children to speak. He questions why Aulë would attempt something so far beyond his authority. And here we really see Aulë's profound humility. He completely confesses his folly, no excuses. He explains he just wanted something to love and teach, kind of like a child innocently mimicking their father. Utterly repentant, Aulë weeps, and then, in a heartbreaking moment, he actually raises a great hammer to smash the very children he just poured his heart into making.
But then, something absolutely incredible happens. The dwarves actually shrink away from the hammer. They show real fear, they bow their heads, and they desperately beg for mercy. This right here is the pivotal moment. Because they flinched, Ilúvatar realizes that they now have a life and a voice completely of their own. They weren't just idle puppets anymore. Seeing Ulu's genuine humility and the undeniable reality of these independent beings, Ilúvatar compassionately accepts Ulu's creation.
There was a catch, though. To preserve his original grand design for the universe, Ilúvatar mandated a strict cosmic waiting game. The dwarves had to be placed into a deep slumber, resting in the darkness under stone. They basically get put on pause. They aren't permitted to wake up until after the firstborn, the Elves, awaken upon the earth. Only then, and not a moment sooner, will the dwarves be allowed to finally rise.
That brings us to Section 3, Yavanna's fear for nature.
Now, with long, quiet years stretching before him, Aulë finally decides to confess his secret underground work to his wife, Yavanna. And well, her reaction is not exactly celebratory. Yavanna is immediately intensely fearful for her own creations. She correctly foresees that the dwarves are going to share their father's unyielding obsession with raw materials, stone, and industry. She knows they'll have very little love for the fragile growing things of the world, warning that many a tree shall feel the bite of their iron without pity.
Filled with this deep anxiety, Yavanna goes directly to Manwë, the king of Arda. She lays out a really important distinction. She explains that while the Kelvar, the animals, can just run away or fight back, the Olvar absolutely cannot. The Olvar are the growing things, the plants, and those magnificent trees that are firmly rooted in the ground. They are sitting ducks, completely defenseless against dwarven axes.
Yavanna's passionate defense of the trees actually sparks a profound reaction, leading us to Section 4, the vision of Manwë. As Manwë sits there, silently taking in Yavanna's desperate plea, his vision is suddenly miraculously renewed by Ilúvatar. He experiences the original song of creation all over again, but this time it's different. He's fully inside it, upheld by Ilúvatar's hand. This incredible moment reveals these hidden wonders and truths about nature's defense that have been planted deep in the universe's design from the very, very beginning.
Let's see how this builds into an incredible cosmic compromise in Section 5, Shepherds of the Trees.
The suspense of this whole situation really hinges on Yavanna's initial warning. Is nature just going to be left entirely defenseless against the iron axes of the dwarves? Would her beloved forest simply be clear-cut without any consequence? She had actually wished out loud that the trees could speak on behalf of all rooted things, and basically punish those that wronged them.
And Manwë emerges from his vision to deliver a wildly powerful, awe-inspiring answer. He tells her that Ilúvatar heard every single part of that original song. So, when the children finally awake, spirits will be summoned from afar to dwell within the forests. They'll be held in reverence, and trust me, their just anger will be feared. These are the shepherds of the trees, powerful, walking protectors for the flora that cannot flee.
What's really cool here is how these ancient domains are perfectly, intentionally balanced by the Creator. The majestic eagles of the West are going to claim the highest peaks and make their homes in the tall mountains of Aulë. Meanwhile, the mighty shepherds of the trees will walk the vast forests of Yavanna. It's just this beautiful, poetic symmetry between the Earth's rugged, rocky heights and its deeply rooted living woodlands.
Let's observe the immediate fallout of this divine revelation in Section 6, the eternal balance.
Hearing this fantastic news, Yavanna triumphantly returns to her husband. She finds him deep in his smithy, pouring molten metal into a mold, and she just lays it out for him. She issues a strict warning his children, the dwarves, had better beware. A new, incredibly wrathful power will now walk the forest to protect the trees, and the dwarves will arouse that anger at their own peril.
And Aulë's response is honestly just incredible. He listens to this terrifying warning about wrathful forest guardians, pauses, simply shrugs, and says, nonetheless, they will have need of wood. It's brilliant. He responds with this unapologetic, pragmatic finality. He doesn't argue, he doesn't get mad, he simply acknowledges their inevitable biological need for resources and goes right back to his forge work. It's a stunningly grounded, even slightly humorous moment that perfectly highlights the stubborn nature of industry in the face of nature's wrath.
As we wrap up this explainer, we're left to ponder a pretty massive question. How beautifully does this myth capture the very real, enduring friction between the drive to build and the absolute imperative to preserve? Think about it for a second. That tension between the forge and the forest, between Aulë's relentless need for resources and Yavanna's deep need to nurture. That isn't just some piece of ancient lore. It's the eternal balance of our own world today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll leave you to think on that until next time.